This is the HexGaming Phantom controller, an expensive but significantly upgraded Sony DualSense clone that was sent to me by HexGaming for review. That said, they had no say in this video's content, so I'll do my best to share what I think is good and perhaps not so good about it. Let's get into it. The HexGaming Phantom will set you back between $229 and $279 USD, depending on whether you get the standard potentiometer joysticks or if you upgrade for the Hall effect ones, and whether you opt for the carrying case bundle, which also includes a high-quality 4-meter USB A to C cable, as well as a bunch of joystick protector rings. Comparing this to the standard $75 DualSense controller, it seems a bit wild, but given the upgrades, it's probably more appropriate to compare the Phantom to Sony's $200 DualSense Edge, which addresses some of the original controller's shortcomings. There are also 6 color options available: white, black, gray, blue, transparent, and Orochi purple. I received the transparent Explorer edition with Hall effect joysticks, and even with the slightly overdone branding on the touchpad, I really love the aesthetic of this controller. If I'm being critical, the face buttons can be a little challenging to see, but I'm never looking at the controller while playing, so this isn't a real concern for me. And, while I've seen others report finger grease being an issue with the black version of the Phantom, I haven't found that to be a problem with this transparent body, only a little bit on the black trackpad. At its core, the HexGaming Phantom is a modified DualSense controller. The layout and body shape are nearly identical, and it shares many of the same internal components. This means it has many of the same pros and cons when it comes to using it with a PS5 versus a PC or gaming on mobile. And for the most part, that's good, because the DualSense is one of the most advanced controllers out there. The on-controller speaker, dual microphone setup, standard dock charging pins, and TRRS headphone jack are all still present, as well as the more advanced sensory upgrades, like the voice coil haptic actuators that provide wildly refined rumble experiences, and the adaptive potentiometer-based triggers, which can change their resistance so that pulls feel different depending on which item you're using in a game. If you're using it on the PS5, this is great, but if, like me, you're gaming on PC or mobile, not all of the features will be available to you all of the time, just like the DualSense controller. So, depending on what games you play, you may never actually benefit from just how advanced the Phantom's adaptive controls are. I'll leave a link in the description to the list of Steam games that support adaptive haptics and triggers. This varies between wired and Bluetooth connection modes, both of which the Phantom supports, with an impressive 550 Hz polling over Bluetooth, as well as just 250 Hz by default when wired, though this can be overclocked to 1000 Hz, but doing so would void your warranty with HexGaming. All that said, the Phantom controller has 5 main upgrades that I think you should be aware of. The first of which are the upgraded controller grips. Flipping the controller over, we find a soft gray rubber coating covering the underside of the Phantom, which is textured with a fine isometric cube pattern that's grippy but not abrasive. It's really well done, falling in all of the right spots to promote grip without making the controller feel sticky in any way. This gray rubber coating is also used on the textured thumbsticks, which are the second main upgrade. Rather than simply matching the thumbstick design of the DualSense, HexGaming has opted for a swappable system that allows you to customize your thumbstick profile, width, and height. I tried out a few different combinations before landing on the short domed stick for the left side and a short wide dish for the right side, but you could opt for something taller if you wanted more precise control over directional inputs. This is the kind of thing I suspect most users will play around with for a few games, then set and forget, but it's nice to see these customizations, and I like how the carrying case has a dedicated slot for the thumbstick travel box. Beneath the thumbsticks, we find what's probably the most important upgrade the Phantom has to offer, the joystick mechanisms. The standard potentiometer joysticks on the DualSense controllers have been associated with drift issues over time, prompting the DualSense Edge to offer swappable joysticks. However, HexGaming took a different approach, developing modules that allow users to fine-tune their joystick calibration on device, either by adjusting screws for the potentiometer-based Phantom controllers, or by connecting this mini calibration controller for the Hall effect version that I have. Either way, you get the ability to recenter your joystick mechanisms, allowing you to extend your controller lifespan, which is pretty important when you're dropping this kind of money. In the case of the upgraded Hall effect joysticks, you can also go through circularity adjustments, and while I'm not a fan of the flimsy ribbon cable interface, and I did find the 15 to 20 minute calibration process to be less than intuitive at first, I can't argue with the results. Out of the box, my calibration was pretty good, with error rates of 6 and 3.6% respectively for the left and right joystick. However, I was able to cut that down to 1.1% and 2.2% pretty quickly. One thing worth noting here is that you'll want to calibrate your joysticks with the joystick protector rings on if you plan on using them. Otherwise, the guards prevent you from reaching the joystick's full range of motion. Personally, I think this is a pretty innovative approach to the stick drift issue, and I like it better than Sony's solution of swappable joysticks because I don't need to buy replacements like I would with the DualSense Edge. That said, it would have been nice to see a TMR joystick option available, because TMR sticks, like Hall effect ones, are less prone to issues, but also offer about 10 times the resolution for finer control, while also being less power hungry. A high-end customizable controller wouldn't be complete nowadays without also offering adjustable trigger stops. By toggling either of these switches on the back of the Phantom, you have the ability to switch the trigger function from the standard 7mm analog travel mode to a short throw, roughly 2mm clicky digital trigger that's more like a mouse button. This is particularly helpful in games that rely on rapid trigger bursts, like FPS games, while the analog triggers allow for more refined throttle or braking control in racing games. I've really appreciated having adjustable trigger stops on all of the controllers that I've been testing lately, so I'm glad to see them here. Though, it's worth noting that some other controllers, like the DualSense Edge, offer another in-between distance, which may have been nice to see here as well. That said, my favorite upgrade on the Phantom is the inclusion of 4 customizable, clicky paddle buttons on the back of the controller. These are labeled K1 through K4 and can be easily mapped on device to control any of the D-pad buttons, as well as the triggers, bumpers, joystick clicks, or the standard circle, square, triangle, and X buttons, as well as the touchpad. To configure these, you use the setup button, which is located between the trigger toggles on the backside of the controller. Double pressing this switches between 6 on-device profiles, each of which is represented by a different color, as well as a lights-off profile, which disables the pads altogether. When you want to make changes, you simply hold down on the setup button for 3 seconds, then, while it flashes, you hold the paddle that you want to map to, and press the button that you want to map to it. This should cause the setup button on the back to flash red quickly 3 times. To undo the mapping, you could press the 2 buttons together again. Then, when you're done, simply hold down on the setup button again until it turns solid. Personally, I use my paddles to replace the shape buttons in FPS games so that I never have to take my thumb off the right joystick, allowing me to swap weapon, reload, crouch, and jump on the fly. I think the implementation of these back paddles is really well done on the Phantom. The buttons are nice and long, quite prominent, and well located, falling directly beneath my middle and ring fingers when holding the controller naturally. The only con is that they are quite easy to trigger. So if you rely on these fingers to stabilize your hand while playing, you could cause some accidental clicks because the activation is quite light. That said, I quickly adapted to gripping a little tighter with my pinky to overcome this, and the adjustment has been pretty seamless. All things considered, I think the HexGaming Phantom is an exceptionally well-built controller that offers some significant upgrades that are likely to improve both the longevity and the experience of using a DualSense controller. I only have 3 other little nitpicks that are worth mentioning. First, The Phantom comes with 2 instruction manuals, which do a good job of explaining some of the new features, but they don't explain basic controller features like Bluetooth pairing, so you may find yourself Googling basic DualSense controls. Second, while the Phantom uses the same battery as the DualSense controller, you're likely to see less life than you would with the original because the upgraded systems, like the Hall Effect Joysticks, are a little bit more power hungry. And third, I personally prefer mechanical switches over membrane ones, so I would have liked to see clicky face buttons and bumpers, but the Phantom uses the same membrane mechanisms as the original DualSense. That said, I know some users prefer that, so this one's hit or miss. Finally, I'll note that the Phantom comes with an excellent warranty that covers button malfunction, joystick drift, and other manufacturing defects for life, as well as battery malfunctions, vibration issues, and controller mainboard problems within the first 6 months. That said, what do you think about the HexGaming Phantom? Do the upgrades justify the price? Or is there something more budget-friendly that's caught your eye? Let me know using the comments below. Otherwise, if you're in the market for a Phantom, check out my affiliate link in the video description to save a little bit while also supporting this channel. And as always, if you found this video helpful, please hit the like button, consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time.